Welcome to Before 30. This is Auntie Jeannine.
And Nephew Trey is in the building.
Hey, hey, what's
How you
going on today?
doing? Everything is good. The weather is still playing tricks on us. It's playing
Yeah.
what is it, hide and go seek. Some days we'll see the sun, some days we won't.
Yeah, I guess it's spring or approaching spring. Like, I think it's the battle between winter and spring, but it's a good day and I'm happy about it. My allergies, I don't know if you can hear it a little bit. I feel a little allergetic and
You
a little,
sound
do I
you sound
sound,
much better.
do I? Okay. Because
Yes.
I still feel like I sound a little nasal, but so it's good. It's a good time to be alive. I thank God for, for you and
Thank
for,
you.
for life and for
Absolutely.
all of our family out here that tunes in and listens to the show. We thank you all for hanging in there with us and being with us.
Agreed.
I don't know. I just feel very grateful today.
That's good. Either one, what are you grateful for? Or do you have something coming up that you're looking forward to?
No, I'm struggling with this springing forward, but other than that, no, I don't know. I just sometimes I just it's not about nothing. It's not about what I have and it's not about what I expect. I think it's just being in a place of saying, you know what, I'm just grateful and having a heart and an attitude of gratitude.
No, that's great. And I think definitely grateful as well. It's definitely been a lot of transitions over the past year for me and to see, kind of where I am now and just, what all is going on in my life, definitely have a spirit of gratitude. Now, I will be honest and say I am looking forward to getting to travel soon. So I believe this time last year I thought, this was only going to be a 3 month, 6 month ordeal. It's been
Shoot,
a
this
year
time
now.
last year, I thought we were gonna be back to normal in April. I was looking
Ex-
at weeks. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a couple of weeks, but it's not.
Agreed. But now, just hearing, the data and what's going on, just kind of, cases are decreasing and it seems that people are starting to get, their vaccines. So hopefully this time around, this fall, this summer, there'll be opportunities to just kind of hang out a little bit and be a little bit
Yeah.
closer to some of the people I like hanging out with.
I think the challenge, if even over the last year, the messaging, so the how we've been being communicated to and communicated with, and then how we communicate with each other
Mm,
about COVID and the virus itself, and down the vaccines. There's just so much. I still feel like there's so much misinformation, propaganda, and then judgment all rolled up in one, right? So we're not exactly sure how things are going to happen, but then there's all of this marketing to get people out to do
yeah.
something, and you can make whatever choice you want to make. So this is not a
Right.
statement on what to do. And then there's this judgment. Like, I feel like every day someone is texting me or asking me, am I going to get the vaccine? And I'm like, why? I
Yeah.
don't, but that's what we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
right? Everybody wants to know what you're going to do and why you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And
And I
I, I,
think
I
to
don't
your
have any.
point, it's been this past year has been a lot of different messaging and noise, if you want to even use that word. We went through a whole like political election and all of that. So,
A
there was just
resurrection, an insurrection. I said a
right.
resurrection, an
So,
insurrection.
there there was just so much going on. I think, like you said, as communication from the government, communication from companies, our jobs, even just for those of us that are employed, it was hey, when are we going back to work? What does the new work environment look like for those of us that were, or some of us that were unfortunately laid off? That communication process, it's been a year of maybe communicating tough or uncertain things. And so
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully we can kind of get back to where that's not the environment.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, we've spent a year talking about this one health issue, which is a major one, right? You got
Yeah.
over 500,000 people in the United States who die from this. But I thought about, what if, and I said people are constantly asking me, am I getting the vaccination? What if we spend more time, like the same sort of energy that we've spent over the last year talking about this virus? that we have spent the same sort of energy and focusing on checking in with people about other things that are good,
Mm,
right? Are you still on track with your goals? How you doing with that? You said, you believe that this is why God made you, was to do these things. How you doing with that? Is there any way I could support you with that? If we said and been more intentional around our communication and reframing it, and not so
yep.
much on the virus, just imagine if someone for 1 year communicated with you about something that was important to you, what an impact that would make in your life.
No, I agree. I think that's huge, and it's definitely it's how we say it, but I think it's also what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, I was a mass comm minor in undergrad, and it's fun. There's this thing that says sometimes the news doesn't always tell us what to think, but it tells us what to think about. And so I definitely can see kind of in what you're saying is the news, media, society, whatever has definitely had this virus on our minds and all that comes with it, which that it's not to say that it's not important, but to your point, where's the balance? How do we make sure the conversation this just doesn't completely dominate the
Yeah,
topics of
it's
our
dominating.
conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish somebody would dominate my life. Like, hey, Jeannine, you still going to the gym? How you doing? You still wearing a
Still
size
eating
8?
right.
You still eating? Yes. Let's dominate that. Y'all, if y'all want to talk to me about something, let's check in with me on how I'm doing with my health, physical fitness, and my,
Physical,
my
mental,
fitness,
spiritual health,
all of that.
all of
Yeah,
that.
check in
Gotcha.
on that. And so, as today, we're starting to, get into these sorts of things. And I think part of what we're really saying to people is, what are you communicating about? And how are you communicating? And what's your style of
Absolutely.
communication?
I
So
agree. All that's important. That's the
it
foundation
is.
of how we interact with each other.
Right.
And it's critical with how we interact with each other, whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives. And so I know there has been a lot of hot topics that we're gonna talk about in the news.
I don't
I'm
even
ready.
know where to start, but I
I'm
will
ready.
say all the things that we're going to talk about are the barriers to effective communication. So I don't. Where you want to start? Who you want to
uh,
start?
should we go in order? Can we go in
We
order a
can
little
go
bit?
in an order. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if it's in order of importance or most
So
recent thing that
so I,
happened.
so I'll kick it off. So I think the first thing is kind of this Oprah interview with Prince Harry
Uh,
and Meghan Markle. And
did you
so
watch it, Trey?
I did. Sean and I, we when it was live, we caught about probably the last 45 minutes, and I had to go back and watch the beginning part of it.
Okay.
And it was eye-opening.
Mhm.
Just one, I think one from just understanding I'm American, so I don't know much about the royal family
Me
and
either.
the in and outs of it. So one, just understanding the structure of it, how it operates, like it's historical, like the history that comes with it was eye-opening. But
Yeah.
then when you start getting into the nitty-gritty about their current situation, why they're living in the States, and the current relationship between the family, um yeah, it was a lot. Did you have a chance to watch it?
I watched it when it first aired here.
Okay.
I watched the full 2 hours. I typically work on Sunday after I watch 60 Minutes. So I work Sunday night. And so it was on. And I didn't get much work done because it was pretty captivating. And I thought to myself, like you, I don't know much about what happens with kings and queens, and I actually don't have a whole lot of interest in it. I'll just be honest with you. But what I do know is what Meghan and Harry are experiencing is no different than what I've seen a lot of families experience, especially in marriage with families who have some sort of system in
Mm,
place. And you can call that system whatever it is, right? You can have an overbearing mother, that's a system. You could have sisters and siblings who feel like, you know, you should still be an active part of the extended family and trying to come
yeah.
between you and your wife. I there's a lot in there. I think one of the things that stood out to me the most, and I actually empathize with Meghan on this, is she said, The one thing she was not expecting and she didn't know what happened is when she got married and she walked into that house, that castle, that they took away her passport, her driver's license, and her keys.
Yeah.
I was like, you like kidnapped. Like
Right.
you can never go anywhere without the permission of someone else. Can you imagine?
Yeah. You feel isolated.
Yeah.
Um, and I think for me, I think what kind of really resonated with me, that there was a few things. And Oprah, I'm like, she put on her journalism hat. She was coming with the questions. I was like, oh, we asking
And the
these type of
follow
questions,
ups.
right?
Yeah.
We asking these type of questions. You want these type of details? Um, I think something that really resonated with me was when Meghan said that it got to the point that she was asking for help. And so what really was interesting was that she said something to the effect of, I went to the system and asked for help, and they said because I'm not a paid employee,
Yeah.
like there is no HR for me. And so I was like, well, and like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of details, but you're a part of a brand or a system that is being used to, you know, go all across the globe and, handle foreign affairs or be a symbol, but there's no resource for you
Mhm.
um, as a result of the work you're doing on behalf because you're not a paid employee. And I was
Yes.
just like, and how it was, how that or how she made that seem, it was just like, that's not right. And so it was, I really empathize with her on that note.
And we can see that show up in a lot of different ways in systems when you think about communicating, that sometimes we
Yeah.
do remove the human experience out of our way of communicating. I see it in the workplace all the time. And I know when I'm delivering trainings at companies, one of the things I always say is, are you communicating with that person as a human being?
Hmm.
Or are you communicating with them as the AP clerk? Right.
Yep.
So they're in this role and you want them to function in this role, but you're completely forgetting the fact that they are a human. They have life experiences. Today, they
Yes.
might be having some personal challenges. How can you still get what you need and what you want done in the workplace, but still experience a level of humanity? And
Yep.
sometimes that's what we feel. And that's what I felt like, Megan was trying to say is that I didn't feel cared for.
Absolutely. And I think those lines definitely get crossed like when you're in a family business. And so when you have the personal relationship that needs to be maintained and nurtured, but quote unquote business has to get done. And so, I tell my wife that all the time. We are very cautious about like trying to do business together because you want to make sure the standard is there, or you really have to talk. Your communication even has to be that much stronger and greater when you start maybe
Mhm.
blurring those lines of, hey, we're friends, we're lovers, whatever, but then we're also business partners. And it's like you got to always check in and make sure you're checking in on the person, because the business can really consume you, and you can lose sight of that person's humanity and what they really need.
Yeah, that's true. And you don't want your relationship to, like you said, consumed by certain things. And it is tough. I feel that way sometimes with when people want to, when my friends or people that I know that are
Hmm.
within my circle want to hire me to be their executive coach or their business coach. I always have to, yeah, it's a fine line because as a coach, I get to be able to help them because there's insights I have on them as a friend, and
Yep.
there's things that I know about their life. I don't want to use it to hurt them, but I want to use it to give them insights. But the other part of that is I don't want our relationship to just completely change to a client relationship, and we start to focus more on that, and the friendship starts to fade away, and then I
Yeah.
only talk to them when they have an appointment, because of their of receiving services. So I understand exactly, how you feel with that, and we have to not just be really careful because communication is really about an exchange of thoughts, right?
Hmm.
Messages and information that we're trying to share, and when we're not communicating, there's a complete breakdown because communication is not about you just saying what you have to say and the
Absolutely.
other person hearing it, right? It's not just that. And we look at the whole Kirk Franklin situation.
Yeah. Now, for all of our listeners who might not know Kirk Franklin, give them a little quick background about Kirk
Y-
Franklin and the situation.
So Kirk
Or you want me to?
Franklin, well, you can do it. You do it. You
Okay.
probably have a better insight than I do.
Well, yeah. So Kirk Franklin is a popular gospel artist. He has numerous albums, won Grammys, and so he has a rather large family, and so he has been in the news lately for a voice recording. His oldest son kind of put on social media. And so in this voice recording, there is, profanity, there's, just certain things he's saying to his son. And so everyone's just weighing in on his messaging. So we'll dig a little deep into that. And then secondly, he issued another statement in response to that video, giving his thoughts. So
See,
go
I
ahead
didn't.
and
Oh, do you have that statement? I didn't see that statement.
yeah. So it wasn't a statement, it was like a 60-second video. So I'll just put it
Okay.
out there. So there was, like I said, in the original video, there was some profanity. Kirk, it obviously was a heated
Some promises of
discussion.
future acts of
Yeah,
violence.
it's some future acts of violence. And so in his 60-second response, he gave some context to that situation and said he and his oldest son, they've had, kind of an estranged relationship. And so the issue is his son not feeling like he's fully a part of the family. Kirk definitely goes to say that he tried to include the family therapist in that conversation, and that wasn't a part of the clip his son showed. So Kirk was just trying to say, hey, there's more to the story. We
Of
tried to get
course.
the family therapist involved. That part wasn't shown. Just keep us in your prayers. And he
Yeah.
he did apologize too. Let me make that clear. He did apologize that he did say some things that he should not have said, and he did apologize for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's the other thing about communication, right? Especially if you think that you have all the facts, is that there's oftentimes missing information. And so I always find it interesting on social media, another form of communicating your thoughts and expressing your ideas and sending forth messages. It is so easy now for people to assume these positions of I can tell you how this situation should have been handled, right? You don't even know Kirk Franklin's son's name, but you have all these thoughts and ideas. Some people, like, I don't have children, but I've been a child before. I've been an adult child
Yep.
before, and we know that we know how to push our parents'
Oh, absolutely.
buttons, and
Yeah.
guess what? They know how to push ours too.
Exactly. And so for me, I, wasn't really kind of looking at all of the comments and trying to, see what people's thoughts were, but I really looked at it as I've seen this happen in normal families. And I think
Hmm.
just, there's, as we talked about with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, families will have situations and issues. And these could be problems that are much bigger than like we have access to or that we're privy to. And so, to me, I just saw it as a father and a son that, um, had a breakdown in communication, and they're trying. Kirk mentioned there's a therapist. They've tried that. So, that
Hmm.
just to me, that made it even more real that like this is something serious that
Yeah,
we don't have enough insights into. So, like I
yeah,
said, I'm gonna keep them in my prayers because you want the best for them. No
you
one, it
do.
hurts. No one
You
wants to
do.
see a parent and a child, communicating
Mhm.
like that. So you really want the best for them.
Yeah, and I think with communication, we have to be really clear about not trying to constantly bring judgment to the conversation, even when we're trying to communicate to someone and trying to get to a form of truth. Right. So even in the Kirk Franklin situation, one of the things that resonated with me, just kind of thinking through this whole thing, is that just because he is a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a Christian, and that doesn't mean that he's perfect. And even though he writes some of the most amazing gospel music, because he can put some melodies together, that does not dim the light on the gift that God has given him. Now, and I get it. The one thing you don't want to do is send mixed messages, right? We don't want to lead people astray. But I think that's the other part, right? We have to, in our communication, when we get angry, because I got
Mm-hmm.
angry. It's interesting. I got angry about something that happened. And I remember talking to a friend about it. And this happened last week. And I was using some language, some strong language.
I love
The
it. Strong, colorful
I was,
language.
yes, colorful, strong language. So I leave the gym after sharing with her what had happened. Didn't think anything else of it. Got in the shower at home, was praying, listening to gospel music as I do. Um, and it just hit me. I was like, I probably over communicated that, right? I was like, did I get to the point that my anger turned to sin? Right. So if
Yeah.
that's, my frame of getting myself back to center is the
Yeah.
word of God. And I thought to myself, Jeannine, you probably did. Yeah, you did. And I started to pray and I asked
Yeah.
God for forgiveness. And I think that's the place we have to get to. When we
Right.
are communicating with someone, and we get angry, feel frustrated, are we in attack mode? And I think that's the thing that I think Kirk Franklin, he probably felt attacked.
Yeah.
And then you can get exhausted when you're going back and forth with people
Absolutely.
for years after year after year, and you feel baited. And now you about to nip that crap in the bud. And we also, and that's the other part. And the third part of what I want to say is sometimes we feel like we are not going to let anybody take advantage of us again. And so
Oh,
then we start
absolutely.
to fight. Then that communication turns into fighting words. And I think that's
Yeah.
what we saw. And I think we all can learn a lesson from that situation with Kirk Franklin and his 33-year-old son. Because he wasn't talking to a 5-year-old.
Right. Right. Or a 16
However,
year old.
right. But
Yeah.
however, we don't want to attack people with our words. And so I think being careful about how we respond to people, and where we go, like where do
Right.
we allow people to take us? And
Right.
when we go there, what is that? What triggered us to that point?
And I think you probably brought up something too, and I've had to, um, and it's definitely no judgment on the person, but think about one, seek to understand and to be understood. I think is something that a philosophy I have always taken into, or I try to take into each conversation, or each interaction with someone. So am I opening myself up to truly understand where this person's perspective is coming from, why they're saying what they're saying? And so that's kind of my approach to the conversation. But then you make me think about something is, just because someone is 33, they might not be at the maturity level of a 33-year-old person. And so I feel like that's why it's even more important to like really seek to understand, because you don't know what I'm getting. I might get the 33-year-old son today, or I might get the 5-year-old son, or I might get the 16-year-old teenage
Right.
son. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that was, and like I said, we don't know the full specifics and dynamics of that, but it was understanding that, hey, I don't, I let me empathize with this person to understand, because there may be something else may be going on, and I may have to dig deeper and try to understand where they're coming from instead of just pushing my point home. And so,
Yes.
yeah.
Hmm. Perfect. That was a perfect summation, nephew. I love that. I love that. So, what else is happening?
um
Anything else that we can use as a sample of how to and how not to communicate? I have one.
It's,
If
go
you got
ahead. I
one.
have one. Go ahead. You go ahead. Mine might be a little deep. We might have to have a part two, but go ahead.
Okay, so mine is I was watching A Soul of a Nation yesterday. It comes on every Tuesday at 10 o'clock on ABC. They should be one of our sponsors, since I done
Hey.
shouted them out. And they were talking, Nick Cannon was on there, and he was talking about, they were talking about his conversations because the episode was on faith and forgiveness.
Mm,
Like all the things that we need to be checking in on a regular basis with ourselves. But there was, so the episodes on faith and forgiveness, they talked about Nick Cannon. He was representing Howard University. He finished his degree there last year, but he was his whole thing with, he had a fallout with the Jews, of course. His anti-Semitic comments, they thought they were anti-Semitic. He didn't necessarily think so.
hmm.
He lost his radio show. He lost,
Was it
in
Dance with the or the
the the
the TV
um
show, right?
the yeah the Wildin' Out. Wildin'
Yeah.
Out was taken off. he and Viacom parted ways. I think they've reconciled that business relationship because he brought in a lot of money for them. So he's that's actually going to happen. So he talked about communication from the standpoint of he's not going to ask for forgiveness. He's like, I'm not putting out any forgiveness statements. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but what I am going to do is atone for my mistake. And he's
Mm,
built these alliances. He's started studying. He's actually even getting a degree in divinity. Studying
mm,
religion is something that he's really passionate about. And he feels very strongly about who Black people are, as it pertains to the Bible. And his ideas and ideologies are not different than a lot of people, which this show is not about.
yeah.
However, I thought it was very interesting that his position around in my communication, I am, if I make a mistake, saying I'm sorry is not enough. He said, because
Mm,
most of the time it falls, it's hollow. People don't mean it. They say it so that they can move on. Um,
mm.
and so he's taking a position of atonement. And I actually really like that.
This is hitting me really hard. This is like hitting me like 12 hours like ago. Like you preaching to me right now. And I think it's something that is very important. And I know we kind of talked about it with Dr. Tamika about our apology language. And I think it's really understanding if when something has occurred or a relationship has been fractured or something has happened, how do you communicate you're sorry to that someone else, or how do you in the words atone for it, like how that whole process of either speaking or doing to make things right, that process to reconciliation. And so I think that is a huge part of communication, and communication can be through acts. It doesn't necessarily have to be something verbal. And then think about it, when it is verbal, and it could, or it could be both. And so,
Hmm.
I think that's very interesting that I haven't seen that series. I might check it
Yeah,
out.
it is. I think this was the third episode. And I think, to that point, Trey, I think it's important for us to, when we have offended someone, to one, take it seriously.
Mm,
Two, to put ourselves in that other person's position. So pretty much like put ourselves in their shoes. And
okay.
then I think the third part is for us to understand where were we coming from, right? Because sometimes we think that because Trey, I know you, you know me, we've been friends, I can be brutally honest.
Come
Brutally
on.
honest, that is not how you communicate with people, right? We're
Yeah.
not trying to be brutal. Brutal means abuse.
Yeah.
Right? We have to even like think about the
Yeah.
language. And sometimes we even choose to say, well, I'm just being honest, and some people can't deal with honesty. But sometimes your honesty is malicious and
Yeah.
it's condescending and it's filled with judgment and anger and hatred. And so I think, and
Yeah.
hatred
And
and
hatred. Yep.
hurt, right? And I think, you trying to hide behind trying to be honest, and the truth is you just trying to be nasty.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's like you said, leading with empathy and compassion and understanding, I think is critical to have effective communication. So communicating where you want to work towards a resolution and not just playing the point the finger game, I think is very essential. And so yeah, we want everyone here to, whether it's your personal relationships, your relationships at work, or any relationship in life, really taking the time to be intentional about those relationships, be
Yeah.
thoughtful in your communication, because it's really, it's the lifeline to how we interact with each other and how we move and navigate through life. So
Yeah, and there are a lot of people out here hurting, and sometimes we don't recognize that they're hurting because it's masked in a whole lot of different things, right? They
that's so
seem
true.
confident, they seem like they're a strong person, they seem, whatever they seem like, they're still a
Yeah.
human, they have feelings, and I think
You know,
we should approach every
yeah.
every conversation in a place of I want to leave this person, in a place a continually being whole. So
Whole,
whenever
yeah.
they interact with me, they will never be broken.
Exactly. Because you don't know what can trigger a person. You don't know, necessarily what they've been through, what they've experienced, and how things have been communicated to them in the past. So being, I think that mindfulness, being very mindful of how you communicate with people and
Yeah.
intentional is critical. And I think the last thing I want to say is understanding the timeline. I'm a chronological person, and understanding that, as it relates to communication, there can be timelines. And so understanding if you've offended someone or if you've hurt someone, just being respectful of that time that may be needed for the reconciliation process. So, that's the
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to bring up.
And so, in summary, I just, want to sum this up. Some of the barriers to communication that we've talked about, like we've kind of had a conversation about this, but I hope you heard that
Yeah.
one of the things that we don't want you to do is be in a position of judging other people. The other, the next one is, not paying attention to the person that you're talking to. We want you to be fully present,
Yes.
understand where they're coming from. So that might mean putting down your phone or your, and just being present and tune into people. And then not using abusive language, right? Not trying to use words to kind of ding people and try to show, show them that you're smarter than them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think one of the things we didn't get deeply into,
Yeah.
but we want you to be solution oriented, but not giving unwanted advice, right? Because that's what I see online. People have all sorts of advice. And then I think, Trey, you wrapped this up really good. Being concerned about people, demonstrating your love and your concern for people when you talk to them. And so we hope that, you check your communication style, because Trey and I have, similar but different personalities. We're irritated at different times of the day
About
about
different
different
things.
things.
Yes.
But we always have to come back and say, and sometimes, like, we trying to drive, we're managing multiple businesses and this one. Um, and so even in this relationship where there's a lot of respect, and love and admiration for each other, uh, it can still get tense, but the bottom line is we will never ever intentionally try to hurt one another. And so the only way to do that is to remember, that you're dealing with another human being, and people have feelings, and their ideas are important.
Absolutely. I could not have summed it up any better, Auntie. And so we just hope you take this with you throughout this week and, honestly, throughout the rest of your life, because these are critical with any of your relationships. Like I said, whether it's parent, child, peers, intimate relationships on your job or in your career, effective communication can help improve any relationship. And so thank you for joining us today. Make sure to stay connected with us on social media. And here at Before 30, you are a masterpiece and a work in progress.